And welcome back to LinkedIn Logs. The Constitutionals podcast. I'm your host, Chad White, and I'm trying to finish a sentence. Finish a text message. I've just finished it. Thank you for Google's prediction software on the keyboard. And this is the podcast you didn't know for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. I can multitask, guys. And they say men can't multitask. I can multitask with the best of them. I do the best thing that ever multitask. Here we are. You know, it's so great. I came in with a litany of stories. I'm not like last week. I had trouble finding 5. This week I found 10. However, I can only do 5. And even 5 is stretching it. I tried to mute the TV using Google Voice. It did not work. Google Assistant, rather. It did not work. Maybe Gemini will be better. Maybe OpenAI will be better at some point. But right now, only Google Assistant works on these devices. Only Google Assistant works on these devices. Anyway, here we are, episode 299. And I've got so many other stories that I want to do. However, news time is coming back. I know I've been saying that for a long time. News time is coming back at some point. And I will be doing news time. I did do one episode as a primer in February, I believe. I did an episode covering, what's that boy's name? Pat McAfee and Aaron Rodgers. I did a whole episode. I wrote it. I shot it. I didn't edit it. Because I was like, all right, this one's going to go up next week, and then I'll have one ready to go for the following week. Just never had a chance to do it for a couple of reasons. But those are shot. I felt great. Writing the script felt great. It was fun and funny. It was long, a nice long episode. So I will get back to it. There are 3 stories. There are 3 stories that are lined up for next week's episode of the Constitutionals that I'm just thinking about pulling and doing as a whole episode of news. One episode of news time each. It's Friday night. I'm hungry, and I have not shot this stupid show yet. Recorded this stupid show. So let's get started. And I can still hear the TV. I should just pause it. I don't know how to control. I used to be able to pull up a remote here in the Google Home app. But now it's just saying can't see living room TV on the Wi-Fi network, yet I can pause the TV. I can't control the volume. Maybe if I went to there's an LG module here on the Google Home. Is it turning down the TV? Yeah, it turned down the TV. All right, awesome. My Lottery Dream Home is playing in the background. We just paid the YouTube TV bill, all $73 split between 2 people. Still $36.50. It's expensive, but it's well worth it. For some reason, Pluto TV the Chromecast, the Google Chrome TV in the bedroom has been not working very well. Like I would launch Disney Plus, and it just wouldn't load up. Pluto TV wouldn't load up. I was trying to take a nap the other day. Pluto TV would not load up. YouTube TV is the only thing that works, apparently, in there. There's also one time I tried to watch Hulu like 2 weeks ago, and it just wouldn't sign me in. Only on that TV. It works out here, and it works on the laptop, on the iPad. Well, my iPad, my laptop, and my phone. Anyway, let's get in with this. Let's get on to the first story. I'm looking at the cables. Remember last week I was having an issue with it. This comes from The Verge, written by Jess Weatherbed. I don't know if I've ever come across that person writing. YouTube is trying to make AI music deals with major record labels. We know that there are companies out there trying to use AI rights, essentially, I guess, music rights with AI, so that they can make music or enhance music or however the way you do it. There's a generative AI feature last year that produced music in the style of famous artists like Charlie XCX, John Legend, and T-Pain. YouTube is asking, according to the Financial Times, to pay Universal Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, and Warner Records lumps of cash in exchange for licensing their songs to legally train its AI tools. It's not looking to expand Dream Track, which was supported by just 10 artists during its phase, but confirmed it was, quote, in conversations with labels about their experiments. I clicked on this link for Dream Track, and let's see what it does. Dream Track, seeded to a few creators on the platform, is designed to auto-generate short 30-second music tracks in the style of famous artists. So the 9 artists that it does are Alec Benjamin, Charlie Puth, Charlie XCX, Demi Lovato, John Legend, Papoose, Sia, T-Pain, and Troye Sivan. I'm disappointed in a lot of those people. Charlie, Demi, John, Sia, and Troy. I kind of see it happening for T-Pain and Papoose. I don't understand why that needs to happen. And 30-second snippets will just pave way for full songs. Okay, I don't know. This does not seem like a good proposition. We don't need to. This will just make way for artists to have their songs ripped off by some jackass on the internet. I mean, and then they can say, the person can say, "Oh, I'm not making money off of this," but that person can become a DJ of sorts and just have a million subscribers making songs with T-Pain and Taylor Swift. They did a song together once. It was funny. The platform is aiming to license music from dozens of artists, according to a report, which will instead be used to train new AI tools that YouTube is planning to launch later this year. The fee that YouTube is willing to pay for these licenses hasn't been disclosed, but the report says these will likely be one-off payments rather than royalty-based arrangements. No, this is just a bad deal for everybody. Sony Music has not been keen on AI. They've extensively warned AI companies against unauthorized use of its content. UMG pulled its entire music off of TikTok. We knew that because of licensing negotiations over AI-generated music. Billie Eilish, Pearl Jam, Katy Perry, and hundreds of other artists called for tech companies to cease using AI to infringe upon these rights. I don't see it. It seems to me that the artists, and let's expand this out past music, artists, television, movies, art, every form of media creation, which I just hated saying, no one wants any of this done. So what is why force it down the throats? I mean, this is what writers were striking for. This is one of the main reasons writers and producers and actors were striking for likeness uses in AI. It's not the main reason. Again, it was one of the reasons, but it just seems, yes, we are going to a future, we are pushing towards a future, at least companies are, where AI is a part of everything. And it just seems as though in the last 2 years that the tool of AI and the tools surrounding AI have been increasingly expeditious. And that's wonderful for these companies, but we have to be smart about how they're introduced into how we make movies and TV shows and music and art and everything in between and outside of the art world. I don't like this forcefulness. But music is a big part of YouTube. Music videos are a big part of YouTube. When I see an obviously AI generated video, I always, not sometimes, all the time, I hit not interested because I don't want to see that mess on my timeline. And the same thing goes for a short. Like if it's like, sometimes I'll see like if Family Guy was in real life. I don't want to see that. Yeah, I can already picture that. Sorry, somebody just responded to a really funny message I sent with a really funny response. But I can already see that, and I don't want. We're taking away from things. What are you doing? We're taking away from people, and I truly don't see the positivity in that. All right, let's move on. This next one comes from Axios, written by Sarah Fisher, a writer I know well. Not that I know her. I've read her stuff. I read stuff. This exclusive AP is launching a nonprofit group to raise at least $100 million for local news. Local news has been struggling. I mean, if you hear how CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, and like you hear how they're struggling, your local news station is not doing well. And when a lot of them get bought up by Sinclair or the other ones, and they make them read ad copies, or they make them read these kind of almost right wing reads across the nation. By that I mean, like, the Fox 5 here and the CBS 19 in Poughkeepsie and the ABC 12, they could all be owned by one company, and they're all given the same script for a lot of their stories, and then they all have to be like, we love the Jenga Bar company, or something like that. Anyway, it's disheartening, and local news is great because this is very funny. When I worked at local news, you had to write at a 5th grade level because a lot of times that's the last grade that people had experienced. So sometimes you could have an adult who didn't go to middle school or high school. A lot of people don't go to college now. So you just have to write at a 5th grade level, and easy enough to understand, and do stories that people in that neighborhood would care about. So in Atlanta, you do a story as big as, a shooting at Lenox Mall. And then you do a story as small as, the Kia's getting stolen. That's not that small. Okay, I should do a different story. A store opening at, a Sweet Green opening in the Atlanta area. The first 500 people lining outside of a new Chick-fil-A get Chick-fil-A free for a year, or something like that. Anyway, the Associated Press is launching an independent sister organization to raise at least $100 million to expand state and local news. Its CEO, Daisy Verasingham, told Axios. The new group is going to be a 501c3 charitable organization, which is good, and it allows the AP to raise philanthropic funds to support its local news efforts, which it can't do as a not-for-profit organization. The new group is going to be called the AP Fund for Journalism, and it's already been established, but is currently waiting IRS approval. This is interesting. This is an interesting move because AP just stopped using, or a lot of companies stopped paying for the license for AP. Who stopped paying? Stopped paying for the Associated Press. I know I did the story. Gannett, the publisher of USA Today, said it will stop using Associated Press content, which means the Associated Press, which is an organization like Reuters, people will, if you have an organization as big as CNN or as small as your local newspaper, you can go, hey, we want to pay for this story, and not just like one story, but you'll have a subscription more or less, and then you'll say, okay, well they can cover this national story better than we can cover this national story here in flippin' Florida. Not really good at coming up with names, guys. right now. And so that's what that does. But people stopped paying for that. Gannett stopped paying for that, and another publisher stopped paying for it as well, so they could just cover it themselves. But now I think AP is drawing itself, even though this is a charity that is creating, it's drawing more of a name for itself, saying that it can help these smaller places, your local Star newspaper that can help make news happen, because there are places like the Sacramento Bee that's not that big, but they're big enough to be known and also need help. God, I'm just messing with a callus on my hand. The new funds will be used to support AP's local journalism efforts, as well as the work of the organizations or services that support local newsrooms per Virasingham. The funds will be up to the organization's independent directors. Within the AP, the funds will be used to help build services that can localize big data sets for local newsrooms. The funding could also help the AP build training and services around artificial intelligence for local newsroom. They inked a two-year licensing and text sharing deal with ChatGPT parent OpenAI last year. Sounds like they have one more year on that. The big picture of this is the more journalism nonprofits are leaning into philanthropy to fill the void left by collapsing commercial model for local news. If you watch your local news station, especially in the morning and especially here in Atlanta, you will see the same windows and siding commercials over and over again, and you'll see the same, Mark Spain real estate commercials. You will see the same. Since I said his name, I'll also say the windows and siding Pickadall. The girl says Pickle, it's Pinnacle. They have a little girl who can't speak real full sentences because she's stupid. And she says, Pickle. She's missing teeth. Ugh. Go get it. Go get some teeth. And you also see like the same lawyer commercials. Hi, I'm Willie Mays, law firm. I think that's what that guy's name is. Anyway, this is a good step. And I hope that this can help people. I hope this can help news organizations in smaller areas that don't have the money to continue running. Make that, fill in the gap and be able to put out actual good news and reporting. They could use that money to pay people. Like there's the Chattanooga has a paper, the Chattanoogan, I think. The Chattanoogan. God, I hope that is. It's called Chattanoogan.com. Yeah. And it's, if you live in Atlanta, it's just like the AJC, except for Chattanooga. So it's a lot crappier. And every article costs money. And I know one person that works there. We follow each other on LinkedIn. Sean Phipps. I'll give him a shout out. I think he still works there. I don't know. Anyway. But I know that they don't have a lot of money. I know people complain about them having to pay for articles. It's just reading about like how, and also reading about like small stories like, oh, this restaurant's closing. Oh, this store is closing. Oh, there's a fire at this warehouse. Chattanooga sucks, man. This is also a not interesting story, and I'm sure I've mentioned this, 100 or 300 episodes ago, but we're on 299, so. 199 episodes ago. I did do a podcast before this. There was something called the Chad White podcast, and that no longer exists on the internet. I've done like 3 other podcasts before this. This is the only one that stuck. This and LinkedIn Logs and Late Night Lately, whatever, the Late Night Show. Anyway, and LinkedIn Logs is the business podcast, the job podcast. But I remember when in Chattanooga, I believe when I was living there in my final year of college, John Hamm and Zach Galifianakis came. They were going to Bonnaroo, and they were shooting a movie. I assume it's Keeping Up with the Joneses. Is that what's called? Keeping Up with the Joneses, 2016. Okay. So yes, they were shooting Keeping Up with the Joneses, I believe, here in Atlanta, and then they went to Bonnaroo, and you have to stop through Chattanooga because in another hour or 45 minutes, that's where Bonnaroo is. outside of Nashville. So yeah, another hour or so. So they had to stop to Chattanooga, and they went and they stopped at a restaurant, Tupelo Honey Cafe, which is like a chain type thing, a breakfast chain or whatever. And they stopped there and they got food and then they left. And that was a story, not just in the local news, but also like truly all around Chattanooga. It was just like, oh, John Hammond, Zach Galifianakis were here. Oh my gosh. And then on their way back, they stopped by again, and they couldn't. Obviously, they were coming back to Atlanta to film some more stuff, and for the movie Keeping Up with the Joneses, with Gal Gadot and Isla Fisher. I remember that. I think it's a funny movie. I like it. Who cares? Anyway, it's got a soft tint to it. I don't know why. Anyway, they stopped by, I think, that restaurant again. I don't remember the entire story, but so they gave their Bonnaroo passes to a couple of girls, and then those girls were able to go to Bonnaroo, and then that was a whole story. I swear to God, this was in the news cycle for 2 weeks. I swear on my life, 2 straight weeks of John Hamm and Zach Galifianakis, the same story over and over again. All right, this next one comes from Brian Steinberg over at Variety. We go from local news over to 24/7 streaming news. CBS shakes up TV news format with streaming whip around debut. Now, you're going to have news. You're going to be, if you're not a news junkie, you're going to be a news junkie. On-screen hosts are too busy to read scripted lines from a teleprompter. They're going to guide viewers from one story to the next, many of which are happening in real time. I think they mentioned this was going to be a thing a couple of months ago, because I really remember this story. All are displayed prominently on a screen of Insta feeds from CBS newsrooms around the nation or from points of interest around the world. When it's time to move beyond the quick headline or some chatter about what's happening at the moment, the host is meant to identify the feed, then let users hear from people and experts on the ground. So essentially you're going to have somebody hosting a CBS News show, which is probably going to be on the CBS News streaming platform. And then they're going to be talking about a story and say, hey, at the Vatican, there was blue smoke, and now we're going to have 7 popes. And then what? And then we're going to turn, and they're going to, okay, and then this next story is about brother printers. And brother printers only explode when you use them with PCs. And it's just like, that's how it's going to be. It's a whip around format. They want to keep people engaged. I don't think this is good for CBS News 24/7. That's what the program is called, but the streaming platform is called. But it just seems... It seems like it's too much at one time. This is not something that should fit CBS. If anything, I thought it was going to be something that CNN does. And we're coming off of this debate, which I will not comment on, but we're coming off this debate between a current president and former president, and I know how much work went into that. There was a part of me, I was cycling yesterday morning, and this is a couple of hours before the debate, and I would say about 13 hours before the debate. So I was cycling. I was cycling. I was on Peloton. I was watching CNN, and they were talking about the debate, obviously. And I was thinking, if I still worked there, they would have to do a background check for me, and then I would probably, I don't know. I don't think I would have been working that night. It'd have been great though, just to be there with Caitlin Collins. Is that her name? Oh, I would have watched it. Kate Baldwin. Oh yeah, I'd have been like, you guys need some coffee or something? You thirsty, baby? Welcome to Atlanta, the dirty South. Oh my God, I'm a horny little slut. The goal is to get viewers, quote, sucked into a massive wall of monitors on screen, says Jennifer Mitchell, the president of CBS stations in the West and Midwest. They want people to just tune in and to see these live streams. They want to see Vladimir Duthier in New York at 10 a.m. and at 1 p.m. guided by Reed Cowan. That's a quote that I took from this article. CBS was the first in the nation's mainstream TV news outlets to jump into streaming. They launched CBSN, which was a streaming news service meant to take CBS News to a broader digitally savvy audience. That was in 2014. And then they renamed it to CBS 24/7, I believe, something like that. This is a free-flowing show, CBS 24/7. Okay, so CBSN is still the same thing. Okay, whatever. CBS 24/7 is the name of the program where they want to go all the way around. You know, it's a lot like NFL Red Zone. That's what it's like. If you watch NFL Red Zone on NFL Network, which is having its own troubles, you'll know on Sundays when, 12 games are going on. I just bit my tongue. When 12 games are going on, I might start crying. That when there's a touchdown or a big play, they immediately the announcers throw to that game. And then they'll bounce back and forth between game 1, game 12, game 6, game 9. Don't know why I went that. But yeah, that's how it works. It's an interesting concept, and we'll see how it fares, but I don't think we should. To me, it feels like it's going to sensationalize what's happening in the news. That's a big problem I already had with cable news. When I watch PBS NewsHour, I don't feel, even though it's 50 minutes long, I don't feel rushed in watching that. They do these long form stories. God willing, there's no breaking news or anything, but they do these long form stories and they tell you everything that's happening. They'll talk about the war in the Ukraine. They'll talk about Putin and Xi Jinping. I don't know. I couldn't think of somebody else. Kim Jong-un, excuse me. They'll talk about things that happen in the U.S. They'll talk about things that happen in Sudan and France, whatever. They'll do those stories, but I never feel rushed. The same thing goes for nightly news on NBC and for CBS Evening News, I think it was called, and ABC News Tonight. All that stuff. But the fact that you are going back to CNN, going back to MSNBC, going back to Fox, you're corralling all of those feelings of and I hate to say this, anxiety into one big pile, and you're going to put on this program, and you're going to tell people that this is done, we're going to go to this is done. It doesn't make people feel good. Doesn't make me feel good. I had to mute for a second. All right, this next one comes from Variety, written by Gene Mattis. IATSE has a deal with spark a rebound in TV and film production. If you're like me and you work in the television and film industry, boy, oh boy, you're having a tough time finding a role. And yeah, Daddy, I am. Okay, we're coming off of an almost potential strike with IATSE. There was a very, very long, I don't want to say discussion, but what are negotiations between IATSE and the studios? There are a lot of craft, crew, and technical workers who have been out of work for a very long time. Because the threat of an IATSE work stoppage was in part helping keep down production for film and television down. With the shutdown threat off the table, assuming the contract is ratified, the studios can move forward with a clearer idea of the costs of the new contract. Film LA, which tracks production volume in the Los Angeles area. I'm sorry. I'm really, a couple of weeks ago, a company wanted to do a profile on me in LA. They're called Voyage LA. And from what I could tell, they do that to everybody. But they wanted to do a profile on me. And then I was like, hey, I'm not in LA. And they go, oh, okay, well, we'll hook you up with our Atlanta affiliate. And I went, great. I just have not heard back from them. So Film LA was just like kind of like re-triggered in my mind that happened. Anyway, but Film LA has seen a modest rebound since the strikes. But since the end of March, it has plateaued at 85% from the strikes. They're talking about the strikes from last year. But plateaued at 85% from the level from last year, said Philip Sokolsky, a spokesman for the agency. He said, quote, it feels to us there is evidence of folks waiting to put projects into production until they know the outcome of the contract talks, the IATSE ones. You wouldn't want to put something new in only to have to stop all the plans. This is the IATSE thing has been happening like well under the boiling atmosphere of the SAG and the writer's strike, and it was something if you aren't in the industry, you had no idea. And it just seems like, okay, now everything went back into production when the writer's strike and actor's strikes ended. But no, these are the quote unquote, the below the line people, the crew members, the people who put in the blood, sweat, and tears to make sure that productions go smoothly. Although we will cover a little bit of that in the next story. The Dutch Merrick, a past president of the IATSE Local 44, is not convinced now that this contract is hopefully done, the floodgates will open. He said the reaction to the agreement that he's seen so far on social media is a mixture of relief, some excitement, and cynicism. And I think that cynicism is stemming from it taking so long, from these studios hemming and hawing when it comes to making these stories. The lack of fireworks in IATSE negotiations compared to the high drama of last year's negotiations with the Writers Guild of America and SAG-AFTRA also makes the formal news of the tentative agreement somewhat anticlimactic. It just doesn't feel as if people know or care, and I think we need to elevate it to a point where, just like the writers for Late Night with Seth Meyers, the writers for iCarly reboot, I think that show was canceled, but the writers for all of your favorite shows and movies, they deserve, the IATSE people, the crew members, deserve as much praise as the writers do. They deserve as much praise as the actors do, because again, they're the ones who are making them look good and they're making them sound good. And I don't know if the stunt people are in IATSE, but they're making them be cool. Similarly, here's a story from Deadline, written by Katie Campione. Crew deaths put safety back in the spotlight for guilds and studios. There's been a lot of whether or not it's because I've been paying attention or we're just trying to get better regulations, but it feels as though there's been a lot more crew deaths in the past or big accidents in the past year. In December, a woman died in a car accident after a lengthy overnight shoot in Peacock's upcoming series Hysteria. In February, a crew member on the set of Marvel's Wonder Man died after falling from a catwalk. In April, several crew members were injured after a stunt gone wrong on the set of Eddie Murphy's Amazon film The Pickup. We've just seen May saw a crew death. I'm trying to see on 911. After a guy died in a car accident after leaving set at 4 a.m. There needs to be some sort of, as I mentioned before, regulations when it comes to this stuff. Below the line people, again, end quotes, they're being overlooked. They're working these long hours. Yeah, your actors are tired. Yeah, your director went long. But there's also people who have families, who have relationships, who have other things, other obligations when they need to get home as well. And leaving at 3 a.m. is not a good idea. And also driving in the middle of the night or having people have accidents on a TV show. I think The Walking Dead people, a couple of people died. This is just, hold on, I don't want to say that. Crew death. Walking Dead crew death. Let's see. Yes, there was a stuntman's death in The Walking Dead. So, just these things can happen, and there needs to be some sort of tightening of it. The one person died after a 14-hour day from working an overnight shift Friday that extended into Saturday morning. The night before that, it was a 14-hour day. The crew had about 10.5-hour turnaround times between shifts, about 30 minutes longer than the rest period required by the IATSE's current contract with the studios. And I think, and again, I'm trying to stress that a lot of this does not come from the overworking of the hours. It also comes from just a little some negligence and some rush and some cutting corners. Oh, they mentioned the regularity of production related accidents. Yes, when it's mentioned in his piece, when this happens, when deaths happens on crew. Crew-related social media pages call for change in the form of working conditions. There's tributes that happen all the time, and that's how it goes. It seems it's more or less the same thing for everything that for all types of media-related death. Just a lot of we're sad for this. Let's change things, and then nothing happens. But finding a conclusion, finding a solution is always difficult. Sorry. I don't know why that happened. Right now, the only penalty is a financial penalty. So if people miss a meal, if people are working overtime, then studios often have to pay, XXX amount of money to crew members and to their unions because they went over times and everything. When I was at CNN, which is and that's not a financial penalty is nothing. If Disney brings in billions of dollars, then they'll just pay the millions it takes to get above that part. Anyway, when I worked at CNN, we're out of the dirt for IATSE. When I worked at CNN, there were three main production hubs: Atlanta, New York, and Washington. And oftentimes, I would say 70% of the shows, 60 or 70% of the shows are crewed out of Atlanta. That means the cameras, that means direction, that means producing. A lot of those shows are handled out of here, Atlanta. So I'll tell you this: the now 7 a.m. show, the 7 a.m. CNN this morning, that is crew or what is it? News Central, excuse me. News Central. This morning was New York. Anyway, sorry. News Central, the 7 a.m. show, the 7 to 10 a.m. show, that is crewed out of Atlanta because I worked on that show when it was a 9 a.m. show. I believe the 10 to 12 and the 1 to 4, all of those. So the 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Is all crewed out of Atlanta. I think Wolf Blitzer's show is crewed out of here too. I don't entirely remember or know that. And then after that, everything else is New York. And I think there's one show in Washington that might be Tapper show. I don't remember. And then the 4 a.m. show, which is CNN this morning now, is crewed out of, or the 5 a.m. show rather, is crewed out of New York. Anyway, a lot of the weekend shows are crewed out of Atlanta, mostly because the New York has very strict regulations when it comes to their crews, so they can only do a certain amount of work. And I don't know what the heck is going on with Washington, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the shows for CNN, to the very least I know, are shot via Atlanta, but out of New York or Washington or Atlanta. So there's got to be, these companies are working around regulations and everything. That's not to say there's, if a show is based in New York but produced out of Atlanta, there's always a crew on set. So there's a stage manager, there's other producers on set, there's camera people who are walking with the cameras and everything. So anyway, that's it. That's all I want to say. But there has to be something for these people. They have to be paid more, and then B, there's got to be a better way to do this. Why would we continue having people get hurt or people die because studios want to be able to make time or schedule or something like that? It doesn't matter. Okay, listen, if you like what you heard here, head to the website cpluscomedy.com, where you can see me talk to famous people sometimes. Hasn't happened all summer. I don't know what's going on. Have not gotten any emails as of late. The last bonus episode I had was a month ago. Why is this not marked as bonus? Anyway, you can check all of that out somewhere. If you want to see a video version of this show, head to youtube.com/C+comedy, where you can see me sit here on a Friday night while everybody's out doing their stuff. Let's see what else. If you want to see a video version of the other shows, LinkedIn Logs, where there's a jobs podcast, you can do that. And Late Night Lately, the Late Night Show. Listen to those podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. Find the RSS feed, put in your favorite RSS feed reader, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, YouTube Music, whatever, Spotify. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, @C+Comedy, me, @ChadBlackWhite. Thank you so much, and goodbye.